We are recording. Cool. Season finale of so it's season 13 and episode 13, and we are bringing the curtain down on this latest season of Mentioned in Dispatches. And to close it out, Mike is back. Mike was here for most of the season. You missed like 3 of them. But Mike, thank you for being here for most of the season. This was great.
If only we had recorded this on Friday the 13th, we would have had the perfect trifecta.
Yeah, but that meant dragging this into December, which I wasn't going to do.
Or we can just tell people we recorded it on Friday. 13.
I mean, we could, but it's going to kill the theme of stuff because we're talking about thankful wargamers and we're recording it the week of Thanksgiving. People will hear it the week after Thanksgiving, but people, you know, they get the sentiment behind it all. So,
all right, well, I'm thankful it's not Friday the 13th.
There you go. And we are thankful that our buddy Bill is back to join us again. Mr. Bill Simone, how you doing, man?
Doing great, Brant. How are you?
We're doing all right. We always, for Thanksgiving leftovers, we always cook a big pot of gumbo with the leftover turkey. And my wife is getting a jump start on it a little bit, and she was making the roux today. So now my house smells like gumbo 3 days in advance of the gumbo. So as everybody's listening to this, the gumbo will be gone. What were you saying, Bill?
It's a good situation to be in. I'm jealous.
Yeah, it's not too bad. Not too bad. There is an outside chance our buddy Cyrano is going to make an appearance at some point tonight. We've pinged him. He had agreed to join us. We have pinged him. I did not check his YouTube channel to see if he's actually streaming a game and kind of forgot about us. I wouldn't be surprised. But yeah, we don't have Cyrano yet, and if he makes it here, we'll tag him in and we'll bring him along. One thing I do want to note before we get into the whole thankful wargaming, you know, what are we thankful for in the world of wargaming? I do want to make sure folks are aware the ACDC is coming up in the middle of January. For those of you in the U.S., it is MLK weekend. For those of you not in the U.S., it's still MLK weekend. It's 17 to 19 January. That is Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We intentionally, even though Monday is a holiday for a bunch of the U.S., we intentionally do not go into Monday so that folks that have it as a holiday weekend still have the day off, but not everybody does, and especially any of our international participants are not going to have that Monday off, so we don't want to drag the convention into Monday. But we'll be starting Friday afternoon. We've got games starting as early as noon U.S. Eastern time, so those of you listening over in Europe, like that's evening after you're done with work for the night over in on Friday, and we'll be running all the way up until late Sunday evening because we've got one game that's got multiple sessions. It starts Friday, has a session Saturday, has another session Sunday, so it'll be into the evening on Sundays. So there's a bunch to look and choose from. By the time you're listening to this, registration for the ACDC will be open. It's only like $4, so it's a pretty good deal for a convention in your pajamas. Like all of our digital events, we use Discord as kind of almost the hotel, if you will, right? That's the key organizing location for things, and then the GMs will load you into you need to have Vassal or Tabletop Simulator or whatever you're using loaded on your machine, but the GMs will set up the games and you come play and off you go and have a good time. I have a couple of talk shows lined up. Dan and Gary are actually doing a special edition of the Chit Show for us just for the ACDC. So that'll be kind of cool also. And so we'll see you guys in January for that. And as we're saying all of that, there's our buddy, Mr. Cyrano himself. Jim, how are you?
Okay, look, for the record, I sit here and wait for my Yahoo invite, and I suddenly check over into the X, and that's where it's sitting. What's going on? I'm confused.
I emailed you the invite like weeks ago, I thought.
No, you texted me if I could do a Tuesday this week. Yeah. It was different.
I really thought I emailed you the invite with the StreamYard link, and I suck. And we're going to leave this in so people can laugh at my, disorganization and incompetence.
I am terribly confused by what happened.
Oh, sorry. I appreciate you being here, though. Thank you.
I'm terribly grateful to be here.
As we're being thankful about things. So we hadn't really got into all the stuff we were thankful about. I was doing the ACDC infomercial as you were dialing in there. So
huzzah.
We shall get started at this point. Mike, you've been such a gracious and consistent co-host this season. I'm going to let you kick us off. Things in the wargaming world for which you are thankful, and go.
Where to begin, right? I mean, everybody likes to talk about how we're in a golden age of wargaming, so that you could start off with that. There seems to be, and I'm sure Jim's going to agree with this because there's tons of solo games out there, but there's so many different types of war games these days, so many mechanics. There's whatever you want. We're just swimming in choices. So I am thankful for that.
You're poking the badger with the spoon there, going
Gotta
after
start
Jim
early.
on solo gaming.
Got to start early.
Oh, I am absolutely certain that he is grateful for solo gaming. I have absolutely no doubt.
I probably not. Bill, what about you? Something in the wargaming world for which you are thankful?
Yeah, today I punched 2 GMT games that just came in, and I'm thankful for rounded corners being a much more common occurrence in games. I don't mind clipping, but boy, it's nice to have them already rounded for me. So
isn't that the weirdest thing that we just sort of came to a consensus that, wait a minute, why aren't we doing that by default?
Yeah, exactly. I can see why, if you've got a huge order of battle and you've got all these units that you have to put in. I'm not sure that we've gotten there yet from all publishers, but if it's just a 2 or 3 counter sheets of standard markers, why not?
Well, that's the thing, though. Isn't this a technology limitation?
Well, that's what I was about to ask. I, on one hand, putting all of the counters right up against each other where you don't have the space between them to like round the corners where each counter is in the punch board independently does save you some space. I imagine the lock and load World at War counters, if you shoved them all right up against each other, you get an extra 2 counters on each row and column of that counter sheet. You wouldn't notice there's so damn many counters in there already. But so there is a little bit of a space consideration, but I really think that, 40 years ago, the technology just wasn't there to really round the corners the way we can today economically. You probably could have done it, but the cost, particularly with the waste in the, with the registration being mechanical instead of digital, you probably would have wasted a lot of them trying to get that perfect rounded corner like that. So,
well, even now, it's not even necessarily a space issue, because I was talking with Steve from Blue Panther, and he switched over to he's cutting with lasers, but he's not rounding his counters, but he's laser cutting them so that really there's no need to clip anything anyway. They're just perfectly square. They look fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah, some of the Blue Panther games, man, if you sneeze too close to the counter sheet, it punches itself.
Oh yeah. No, it's a lot of the stuff from Hollandspiel is like that.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. Hey, Jim, something you are thankful for in the world of wargaming?
I just want to understand, is that just for 2024 or just at this moment? What's my criterion? Because I have a lot of things I'm grateful for.
No, you can go look. It's not like we do this annually so that there's a statute of limitations or anything. We're just looking for something, and it's Thanksgiving week here in the U.S. So go wherever you want to with it.
Well, I have a list. I always like to bring a list but I'm going to say it, and I mean it sincerely. I am thankful for the Armchair Dragoons and the guys I get to play war games with. I've told my story on a number of occasions. I grew up wanting to be a Napoleonic wargamer. I became one. I became a miniature wargamer of all kinds of ways. And now, just because of the way my life is and the way remote is and the way my eyesight is and all this stuff, the fact that I have the ability on Tabletop Simulator to play with a revolving group of guys, play a bunch of games, and I mean all kinds of games, play stupid big ones, stupid little ones. That is, if you'd have told 16-year-old Jim, who was trying to persuade his friends, no, these 25 millimeter figures from minifigs are really awesome, and I want to fill a table with them, and you want to do it, and none of my friends understood, not one. And to be able to come to this point in my life, to have people that are, and the other thing is, people that maybe not even are committed to it or want to do it a lot, but are willing. Shoot, I mean, I tease you a lot, Brant, but shoot, you've come by and played, Yeah, and the fact that can happen, and it can happen with people, and this is, you all know this to be true, in Spain, in Germany, in Britain, in Canada, and all literally, and Australia, and New Zealand, and America, of course, and all over America, is very, very special. And I am very thankful for it.
In my defense, I did used to work on Saturday nights when you guys were playing, so it's a little no, but it's sessions desk at the at work.
And we haven't started enough Farkle tournaments for you.
Yeah, exactly.
I think Jim hits it right on the head. I'm not much of a tabletop simulator guy, but Vassal's the same way. Being able to play with people, whether it's across the country or across the globe. Just off the top of my head, I know I've played people from Canada, the UK, Germany, Poland, Brazil, and the Philippines this year. I mean, when else would I have gotten a chance to do that?
Yeah. I do think it's great. And, that kind of dovetails in with the infomercial we were doing when Jim showed up about the AC/DC. When we started those digital conventions, it was because everybody was locked in their house and, we were kind of jonesing for something. And so we tried to replace that summer convention season with digital conventions. And it wasn't great, but at the time we didn't need great. We just needed something. And it sort of filled the niche a little bit. It was kind of cool. But one of the things people realized is, I don't have to go to the big convention to kind of get that convention feel. I can stay at home in my pajamas and do it. And so we've continued to do those things for folks to be able to participate, again, without ever leaving the house, but also to be able to be involved with, and get close to that convention feel without all the headache and expense and, COVID exposure that comes with going to a big convention. So.
And I don't want to be morose or anything, but we've had a couple of guys who have played and some who are still playing with us who really don't have any outlet other than this for gaming. They can't get out. Their finances don't allow it, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
But this is their one way they get to game. And they, if you put them to it, they will express their gratitude for it. And that's not me. I want to be clear. This is a community of people that draws them. And having that community and having the technology to support it is pretty awesome.
Yeah. And I do want to, for those that don't know the full backstory, we're not going to tell the whole backstory, but your guys' online gaming project as it is now that you're like 6 years into this, it wasn't a reaction to COVID. Like you started doing this in 2019 before COVID ever hit, because didn't you guys play the giant like Leipzig in real time battle that wasn't that 2019? Wasn't that before the pandemic?
It was. It sure was. Yeah.
So, all of this started well before we were all, locked in our houses watching Tiger King. This was something that had been going for quite a while beforehand. And as we've often told other folks is, when the pandemic hit and everybody else freaked out and was like, oh my God, what do we do for our gaming? You guys just sort of shrugged and said, we're going to keep doing what we're doing.
Yeah, and that's right. And I mean, it's one of those things where I would tell you that, it sort of, it crested and it went down because people can play in person again and all those other things. But you're absolutely right. I mean, we've been doing this now for it's a little over 6 years. And and the really neat thing and the super neat thing, I know you've had Mike, OJ's dad, on the broadcast. You've had a couple of others. OJ has been here from the very beginning.
Yep.
He has been playing online games with this group for, like you say, going on 6 years.
Yeah.
That's kind of, if you think about it, that's kind of bonkers.
Yeah. And I know our buddy Command Tent has pretty much doubled the number of games he's played in his life just gaming with you. Not because he's like 14 years old or anything.
Oh, we accuse him of that, but it's not true.
He's close. But he's just the regularity with which he's able to game with you guys that he isn't able to do in real life because of kids and job and family and everything else going on, that you are his gaming outlet. Like without the regular games he's able to join with you, he'd hardly get anything in.
And just by the way,
he's getting old enough now that he gets a little bit of gaming in with them, but it's not what you guys are doing.
And the inverse is our guy Achilles, who he'll tell you he wouldn't, he's very involved, as you know, with the International Kriegspiel Society. He plays a lot of games with them, but he'll tell you he'd had never played a miniature game in his life, had it not, and yet he's now played hundreds of hours of them. And it's, it's exposed him to a world that he's a hex encounter guy, first and foremost. He's got War in Europe, the SPI Mega Quad stretched out on something that looks like the size of 2 sofas. And so that's his jam. That's what he's going to do if you leave him alone to his own devices. But he is an absolute regular, and he stays at this, and he talks about how it exposed him just to a side of gaming he just wasn't aware of, or that he wasn't familiar with.
One of these days, you need to rope Bill into a game with you.
Well, he's welcome. All tables open.
Bill, that means you got to learn Tabletop Simulator, though.
I've got Tabletop Simulator, and it's great for the stuff that Jim does. It's just overkill for hex and counter games, right? Of regular board games.
Yeah, I mean, it works real well for the simple SPIs. Like we've done a whole lot of the quad games from the classical era. But yeah, taking it back to the stuff you're talking about, I don't know. That's a bit much.
Yeah. If you're trying to do all 4 quads at once on the same table, then yes, Tabletop Simulator is your friend. I don't know that Vassal.
Yeah, which we've done, as you know.
Exactly. I watched a good chunk of it.
I'm pretty sure the first video of Jim's I saw, if I'm recalling correctly, was them doing some blue and gray.
Yes.
Yeah. And that brought back memories because that was my first war game, or my first one that I owned personally.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, that was we did a sequence of games where we did a pan to all the classic SPI quads, just trying to. It was me in a bad mood, honestly. People, these war games are really complicated and hard, and they're completely inaccessible to new gamers. Really? Well, let me introduce you to something that was written by those crotchety old guys back in the 70s that have 3 pages of rules. Stop it.
Yeah, exactly. And generally take under 2 hours to play.
Well, like I say. We went in the one that Bill's talking about. I think we made it through the quad. We played the quad in probably 6 hours, all the games.
Yeah. And why not? I do think that it's been discussed a little bit here and there. I don't know that we could completely convert Origins to it, but it would be fun to try and one year just do a giant SPI quad fest.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's something we try to do at BGF instead of somewhere like Origins, but we just do a giant SPI quad fest and we just set up like 6 tables of nothing but SPI quads and because it's not like you got to know the games ahead of time, right? You can learn SPI quads in 20 minutes and have a game done in under 2 hours. Hell, Mike and Bill saw it happen at Fall Assembly this year. Well, actually, you guys might have been gone by that time that evening, but we threw the old SPI Mod Quad 2 game Bundeswehr on the table, and we had 2 guys playing one side together. They had that game done in, it was probably closer to 3 hours because my cousin's husband was one of the ones playing, and he suffers from bad analysis paralysis. And so, and Aaron Dennis had to keep stopping to say hi to everybody whenever they'd walk by. But, normal players could have knocked that out in 2 hours easy. And that included a little bit of learning rules with one of the players and the other guys refreshing themselves with it. I really think, something, it probably couldn't pull it off for BGF this year, but one of these years, something like a BGF, we ought to just go all in on SPI quads for like the whole weekend, or, pick a day and do nothing but SPI quads for that one day, all day. Because it'd be kind of fun to pull out a whole bunch of old ones and see the variety of things that they did with those old games.
The lucky 13th season of Mentioned in Dispatches is made possible by our fantastic regimental patrons who joined our Patreon at the top level. The Armchair Dragoons would like to thank Michael Sunborg, Andy J, Brigadier Gray, Joseph Knorr, Fred Stogg, Matthew Rowe, Chet Bell, Hellcat6, Patrick Garrity, Stagger Wing, Kevin Bertram, Mike Quigley, and Fred too. Their support of the Regiment of Strategy Gaming helps us bring you the best strategy gaming articles, events, and this podcast. You can join us as a Patreon supporter at patreon.com/armchairdragoons.
I think that's one thing that I would throw on the table that we can all be thankful for, is that these games have staying power. This is, we're talking about pulling out quads from 45 and 50 years ago, probably not 50, 40 to 45 years ago, pulling these things out, throwing them on a table and still being able to play them. One, everybody still got them laying around and in reasonably good shape that we could play. But we got them in reasonably good shape that we could play. But also, again, that people would be interested in wanting to play them. So maybe that's something we all need to be thankful for, is that these games have the staying power that they do. So, Bill, what do you think?
No, I agree with you. And that segues into something, I'm grateful that I've got the space and the ability to keep a lot of the games for years and years and years. I might not touch them for 10 years, but boy, when I have that itch, I can pull them out, play them, and they're as good as ever.
Yeah, absolutely. Just out of curiosity, Bill, because we've had this conversation with me and Mike in the past. What's the oldest game you've got in your collection?
Oh, wow. Let's see. I talked about Blue and Gray. I've got the TSR version, same one there. I've got Gladiator from Avalon Hill. I've got Robin Hood from OSG.
Wow.
I didn't know they did non-Napoleonic games. I didn't know what OSG was at the time, right? But now they're all Napoleonic.
I have the Avalon Hill small box game net reprint of that one.
Okay.
So, no, that's all pretty solid early mid '80s stuff there. So,
you kids are cute.
Well, I was going to say one of the oldest ones I have in my collection, Jim, you actually sent me. I've got one of the Featherstone books.
Oh, there you go. Now you're talking.
Yeah, Jim took a picture at a used bookstore. He's like, check out all these cool old books. And I was like, hey, Featherstone's in there. And Jim sent it to me. I'm like, what the hell? So that was very thoughtful of you, and I appreciate it.
Well, no, that was as you can well imagine. My story on that is that I checked that book out of the in the copy I own. I checked it out of the library so many times that when the librarians remaindered it, they kept it behind the counter for me, and they said nobody's going to love this like you do. Here, it's a dime. Take it.
That's pretty awesome. That's not the one you sent me, I hope.
No, you got the actually mine is much more beat up, and it's got my 16, 17-year-old pencil drawings in it, where I was trying to figure out I didn't understand how miniatures worked back in 1982. And so it's got a lot of my figuring. Yours is a much cleaner and happier copy. But just for the record, my 30 years war quad is approaching its 50th birthday in 2026.
Yeah.
So to your point, salute to them for sticking around and having people still care about them.
Yeah, definitely. Other than the Featherstone book, I'm just looking. The oldest actual copy of something that I have reprints of things that are much older. The oldest physical copy of something I have. Jim, what year did War and Peace come out from Avalon Hill?
The original McLaughlin, 81 or 80, I think.
Okay, so I have SPI games older than that one. That's not the oldest one on the shelf then. All right. I at that point, I'm having to go look at copyright dates. I know Mod Quad 1 is 75, so.
Yeah, baby. 80. Nailed it.
Okay. So, yeah, other than the that Featherstone book, it might be Mod Quad 1. That's my oldest one. Mike, do you remember what the oldest thing you've got there is?
I can't remember. It's got to be 76 or 77, but I cannot remember.
Is it?
I know that
the original Starfleet battles floating around.
Well, I was going to say usually that's my answer. But I think I have some older than that. But yeah, that's usually my answer because that's the one I started with, and it's 79.
Yeah. So,
but I know I've got some older stuff since then, either through eBay or Noble Knight or somewhere else.
Yeah. My oldest stuff is all rule sets. It's I as is no secret, I collect them, and I've got a first edition Little Wars that I finally got added to my collection.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
So that's what 1898, 99.
99.
Okay.
And we won't talk about it on this podcast, but at some point we need to have the estate podcast where we talk about what we're going to do with all this stuff that we have.
Oh yeah, no,
it's going to take all that off of Jim's hands when he gets.
It's a beautiful New Yorker cartoon where a dad is standing with his son in front of this stuffed storage unit saying, "Someday, son, all this will be yours," and the son is giving him a look that strongly suggests, "Oh, Dad, no."
Well, in Jim's case, his son is a gamer and, may well just take up the mantle and run with it and pass it on to his eventual children. We shall see.
That's true.
That works well for Jim, not so much for the rest of us. My daughter's happy to play some games with us. My son, if it doesn't have a B button, he's a lot less interested. That's just the reality of it. I can't fault him for it. He's damn good at it, but that's his thing. That's what he has taken to, and that's his shtick. So, Mike, what's something else that you would be thankful for across the pantheon of wargaming as we sit here today in the year of our Lord 2024?
We've kind of touched on it, but it's such a broad category, and it's basically technology, the technology time that we're in, and that you can basically print your own game now. I mean, you can take any idea you want, or you can take any print and play game, and you can just print it, ship it off to a printing company, and have it back in a couple of weeks. So there's that. There's like we talked about with Tabletop Simulator, Vassal, the internet, Skype, talking to people. You can actually do these things now without leaving the house. Like Jim said, there's people who can't get out, but they can certainly play games with people through these through the internet, through technology. So where we're at with technology, and it's only getting better, is pretty amazing. So I'm thankful we're at least where we are.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's how we record this podcast.
There you go.
So, yeah, I've had people on the podcast many times that I've never met face to face. So, it's not like that's really a new thing, but without the technology, the podcast wouldn't exist. So yeah, that's cool. Yeah. I could count on one hand and have fingers left over the number of times we've recorded podcasts with people in the same room.
No, you're right. You're telling the truth.
Yeah, we've had a couple where Jim Werbineth was in town and we went over to Gamers Armory and sat there and recorded one with the hum of gaming in the background. We had the ones from Gamma Expo last year where I had a couple of different people stop in to the media room, and we did 10-15 minutes each with like both of the Worley brothers, and with James Buckley was over from the UK, and a couple of folks like that. Jason Matthews stopped in, but we haven't done a whole lot of in-person podcast recording over the years, so it's cool because technology lets us do this. So yeah, absolutely. Bill, what do you think? Something else in the wargaming world for which you would be thankful?
Yeah, you know what? It's going to be the people that I've met, not via technology, but face to face. I'm lucky enough to have a local gaming group. My friends Dan, Chris, and Ben, that we get together 2 or 3 times a month on Saturdays, and are able to get together. Whether it's meeting up with some of the folks in the Dragoons at BGF or Origins, out in Kansas City with the Historic Fest crew from there in St. Louis. Just all the people I've gotten to meet. That's something I'm really thankful for.
Yeah, wargamers can be pretty neat people. They're I think the fact that so many of us have become just normal old friends over the years and have plenty of conversations that have nothing to do with wargaming, I think sort of speaks to that. It's a little weird because there's times when we're at conventions and we're all sort of hanging out together, having conversations that have absolutely nothing to do with gaming, but it's like 7 wargamers sitting around having a chat. If we could ever get him to come back to Origins, some of Jim's work stories are actually a riot, and some of the funniest tales you will ever hear told. And not just because Jim is a great storyteller, but because Jim's had some truly batshit crazy stuff happen to him at work also.
Thanks for saying so.
Yeah, and we're not going to try and get you to tell any on the podcast because we want you to maintain legal deniability.
We want you to maintain your employment.
That's good too. Yeah,
there's that too. But I will tell you, when you work at the levels that Jim has worked in government, you've come to see some really crazy things happen below you, and they're the fun kind of stories that you would only have gotten had you met Jim somewhere along the way, and it's through gaming that we've been able to do that. So that's cool. So Bill, I think that's a great point. Some of the fun, neat, cool folks that you've been fortunate to meet through gaming. So absolutely.
I'm not above sucking up, Brant. So I'll take a second turn here and say you and the rest of the folks in the Dragoons that work to keep wargaming alive at Origins, making sure there's lots of events available, people GMing them, and really evangelizing the hobby for the rest of us.
Well, I appreciate that. Mike and Jim have both been a big part of that at various times over the years as well, and so they deserve some of those plaudits as much as anybody. When it all started back in 2014, wargaming was kind of dying on the vine at Origins, and we called up the Gamma folks, and just the question was essentially, what are you going to let us get away with? That's really what we were asking. and we had this list of like 10 ideas and kind of got a no to every one of them, but we did have that conversation. They said, but we will let you do these couple of things. That's evolved into where we are now. Funny thing happened on the way to all of where we are now, though, is that my original intent was, let's just bring the wargaming back into Origin so we can start getting wargaming companies to maybe try and come back, and I'd have like cool shit to buy in the exhibit hall. And somewhere along the way, I kind of realized that I sort of enjoyed a lot of that, organizing and, scheduling and arranging and executing stuff as much or more than, some of the game playing that I was doing. And so that's one of the reasons I've stuck with it. It's been fun. I know some people are going, the hell's the matter with that guy? Man, we ain't got that kind of time. But, that's been something that I've enjoyed. So I'm happy to do it for folks. So thank you. I appreciate it. It's been a good time. And look, that's where I met Jim face to face the first time, was when he showed up at Origins for some of the staff wargaming stuff that's evolved into the CPXs. So
and then
cool now.
and to continue down that thankfulness train, I think, by going to Origins and, we had this group and we run Origins and have a great time, it kind of led us to the fall assembly, right, Brant? I mean, we have our own convention that we just stood up, and it's a great time, and we have people that show up, and they seem to have a good time, so that's kind of cool.
Part of the intention all along with us doing what we do at Origins was to learn enough to try and pull off our own in-person convention somewhere that was more specifically wargame focused, which Origins is famously not anymore. And it took a little while to where we were comfortable enough with the process. And quite frankly, it took some of the pandemic digital convention organizing to really get to that comfort level. But I think we're there now, and that's growing and building. And, that has definitely been something that has helped make those two fall assemblies reasonably pain-free, on the organizing front. When anything's small enough, it's going to be relatively pain-free. But I think we've got a good structure in place to grow for the future. So I'm hoping we can continue to do that. One of these days, we might actually get Jim to show up for it. Well, October's budget season for you, dude.
It is.
So... Well, it does land on a holiday weekend for you, so maybe you can escape one year.
Weekends are abstract concepts some days during the budget, but I appreciate the thought.
We can play a choir if you show up.
Yeah. No, I'd rather you'd probably have to play D Macher.
I'm going to track down a copy of Lie, Cheat, and Steal, and I'm going to get all of my friends that work in politics to sit down and play Lie, Cheat, and Steal with me.
There you go.
Just so they can tell me how watered down it is from what really happens. So, for folks that don't know, go look up Lie, Cheat, and Steal. It's an old Avalon Hill bookcase game that is not a war game, but is still a riotous game of political dirty tricks.
It is all that. It is. No, yeah. I've played it.
I'm not bullshitting anybody.
No.
So,
Jim said, and I've played it, I've lived it.
Yeah, it's kind of that moment. The greatest television show ever created was Yes Minister by the BBC. The only problem with it and Parks and Rec for me is that every now and then I'm like, what are you all laughing at? That was Tuesday.
Yeah. I was trying not to get you in trouble by getting too close to like the day job. I was just sort of going in broad abstracts. For the record, you're the guy that brought up the details.
I did. But, and Bill's point is absolutely right, though, is that you and everybody else who puts together a con somewhere, big cons, little cons. I mean, I look at Historicon at a distance, and I used to go every year. Unfortunately, I haven't gone in ages. But I certainly look at the CPXs and all that stuff. But Historicon particularly, to put up with the abuse those guys do, and gals, because there's a lot of ladies involved in that, helping their long-suffering husbands, or just because they're organizers and it's a charitable thing too. It's like to put up with the abuse that they do to put on an event. It's like I'd have told those people to pound sand ages ago. And the fact that they still do it, and it's going from strength to strength, and it's not quit, and that that all these little, that, like I say, big cons, little cons are still going on. That's pretty awesome. It just isn't a part of what I'm doing right now, but I love watching the photographs. I love reading the accounts. I love seeing the videos. I think those are really cool.
Well, and look, you're going to have Adepticon in your backyard this year, so I
have actually blocked out time for. I'm there. It literally is 3 blocks from my office, so it's like,
yeah,
I'm pretty sure I'm in.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure your convention boycott is not going to last. So
yeah.
But hey, if you've got one that close, yeah, you definitely go. So especially one that caters to the kind of thing you're actually doing right now, which is a lot of mini stuff. I do need to ask though, Jim, are you gonna like show up at Adepticon with 6 laptops and put them on a table and play a giant tabletop simulator minis game?
Seems like the only thing to do. No, I have to get together with David Ensness. He and I have been missing each other weekends because weekends are what they are. We have to get on Tabletop Simulator because that's how he's training me to be a proper facilitator for Et Sans Resultat at Adepticon. That's right. I will be helping him run games. So little teaser, not only will I be out there and some of the other Dragoons out there, but in addition, if things play out right, our Dude Guy, he who is... I envy him because he's got an absolute fascination with the Vietnam War. That is his focus. That's what he does. And if you've seen any of the posts that he has done in the Discord chats about the work he does amazing miniatures. They're really cool, and he does some really cool tabletops. He's going to be dragging those all the way out to Adepticon from the West Coast. So we'll be running some Charlie Don't Surf. So that'll be cool.
I've actually met the guy.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, he was out. You were out. Were you out that way, or was he out your way?
No, I was out that way. Me and him and Achilles got together for an evening at Dude Guy's local game store. There is the one we met up at when I was out in California last summer. So
yeah, he's going to be crashing at Robert's place and in the classic gaming fashion, grabbing the spare room, and he's going to be running CDS.
I will say something that I would definitely throw on the pile of things that I'm grateful for are we are fortunate that the pandemic subsided, the way it did, that we've been able to recover the way we have with a pretty healthy and robust convention scene in the gaming world and the wargaming world specifically, in that outside of the one-off like a Historicon, which again, very minis focused, and Jim, you've noted that Adepticon it's like what, 40% Warhammer 40K or so.
Yep.
And that might even be low. But
no, you're right.
But it's outside of the minis focused ones that are several thousand people, the wargame specific conventions or the wargame focused conventions out there aren't drawing more than 200, 250, maybe 300 people tops. Both Circle DC and SD Hist cap their attendance just because the fire marshal caps their attendance for them.
Yeah.
Compass Expo, I just think there's only so many people Bill likes that he's even going to let in the door. And the rest of them are in pretty small facilities. Bill, you've been to Historic KC Fest. Do they hit 100 people or close, or are they? I don't think they're much over if they are.
No, they're under. I want to say between 60 and 75 people, and I might even be a little heavy there.
Which is still not a bad crowd for a wargaming event.
No, and they've always been lucky. They've held it in 3 different spaces, and every single one has been more than sufficient to have plenty of room for folks. It's a great setup.
Yeah, BGF is not a wargame focused convention, but the War Room there will bring in probably 40 to 50 folks. Consim World Expo is sort of the kind of the gold standard for wargame focused conventions, and even that one caps out at 250 to 300 or so, but still putting anywhere from 50 to 200 wargamers in one place together for a full weekend of gaming. That's kind of cool that we can do that. And there's enough of them that have survived or grown and kind of enlarged their footprint, or at least awareness of themselves. In a few cases started post-pandemic, that you've got a pretty solid selection of places to go play war games around the country on a regular basis throughout the year without having to get, you're going to have to get in a car and drive for an hour or two. Certainly not any worse than you would for a long weekend away at the lake or something. But there's plenty of places to go and find a good war game focused convention with a reasonable size crowd of folks. And the fact that we've got enough of these around the country, I think is great. And it is something that I'm thankful for, because that's how you make new friends in the wargaming world. That's how you get a chance to see and try some new war games that are otherwise tougher to get a chance to play or even be made aware of in some cases. I think it's a really neat scene that has continued to evolve. They all sort of have their own unique vibe and feel about them, which is what you would want. You would want them to all be sort of these unique things and not just franchise, McDonald's franchises of each other somewhere out there. I'm very thankful for the way the convention scene has come back and evolved and survived the pandemic and grown since then. That I think it's cool. It's a good time. and I appreciate all of the people that put in all the effort to make those events happen, because I know what it takes, and it's work, and I appreciate all the people that do that at all those different conventions. So. Jim, what else you got?
I am grateful for the way that technology, and particularly really just printing has opened up the world of wargaming. We've already talked a little bit about it, how it does it with counters and with maps and with chits and things. But just last week, and I want to give a shout out because it's a sub part of my gratitude, I'm grateful for the new Midgard rules from the Two Fat Lardies. We have been having such a blast playing these, or actually we're not even playing them. We've only had a stumble through with them. For those who don't know, they're a game of it's high adventure. Yes, you can use it for historical. Yes, you can do 100 Years War or what do I want to say? Gosh, the War of the Roses. You can go all the way back to the Bronze Age, but it's also intended for fantasy and for all these other things. When you look at this book 40 years ago would have been, at best, no color, black and white, probably, I doubt it would have been perfect bound. It would have been staple bound. And it would have been, it would not have had the level of proofreading. It wouldn't have had the lovely art. It wouldn't have had the accompanying tables. And there has been such an evolution in the quality of both games and the rules that go in the games, that it's just night and day. Billy Joel famously told us that the good old days weren't always good, and tomorrow ain't as bad as it seems. And I really think that's the case with the technology that supports this hobby. I will take second to none in my love for my quads. I really, really do. But when you compare them just to the maps and to the art that's now going into our board games and into the quality of our rules that we're playing, there's no comparison. It's really neat.
Yeah, for the most part.
Oh no, but here's now. May I intuit your question or your comment? Please correct me if I'm wrong. This has raised the bar for those that screw it up.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you screw it up, you are going to be seen, and you don't have the excuse.
You are going to be called out. We talked about technology. You will be called out before the masses.
Yes. And that's another great point. One of my old bosses, unfortunately, has passed away. His older brother was an SPI playtester in the day. And he gave me one of his playtest kits. And it's one of the Modern War Quad games, I think. And it's amazing what they made these playtesters do. They had to build their own game. It came in pieces. It came in a big manila envelope, and you had to kind of cut it into pieces. And they had to write notes and mail them back.
And
somehow those.
Thank you, sir, may I have another?
Yes, and they kept signing up for it to do it again. And here he is in the American Middle West doing that out of New York, and so they're shipping this back and forth to him, and he's doing this work. And yet they somehow managed to play test it. There's no excuse, and we've already mentioned it, in this era of Facebook pages or Discord. I mean, one of the things, a poorly kept secret, Dave Thompson, friend of show, Dave Thompson, look at his hours. Every time I post my hours on Tabletop Simulator and I go, oh, God, St. Peter's going to talk to me about this. I am in trouble. Dave Thompson posts his hours. He's well over 10,000 hours on Tabletop Simulator.
Yeah, I imagine so. I mean, that is a great utility for prototyping and testing.
And that's what he does. He gets a bunch of guys together. He'll get a bunch of his guys together and they'll play. But then he'll say, look, you're going to be in this group. I'm not going to visit you. I'm not going to talk to you, but you do this and you give me your notes. But then I'm going to visit you later after you've gotten it. He's so creative about it. So he knows his standards go up because of that. If you suck, if you're lazy, if you're not willing to commit to the process of iterative playtesting, you will be exposed and there will be no excuse. You do not get to put on your map that this is Brest, B-R-E-A-S-T.
Yeah. Well, it depends on the game. Come on, Jim. Some games need that.
Oh, okay, that's true. Yeah. There are games for whom that's maybe the only salient selling point.
Right. There are, the game in which you found it, it was not appropriate.
Yes. Right.
That doesn't mean it's not appropriate in any and all cases.
Mm-hmm.
So there are still moments and occasions.
I will stipulate.
Guys, as we are, coming down to the last 10 to 15 minutes or so, as we kind of take one last big gander around the wargaming world, and if you want to cast an eye a little further than just the wargaming world to the wider hobby world, some of the other things that you may be thankful for. I'm going to throw another one out there, but let everybody kind of ponder on their own for one more trip around the table here, our virtual table, as it were. One of the things that I think some of us of a certain generation, and I think it applies to all four of us on this call here, that something to be thankful for. If you look back at a lot of the conversation and a lot of the headaches and quite frankly, some of the insults and teasing and such that we had to deal with when we were growing up for our love of our games and our fandom of some of the things that we played and the things that we read and the things that we enjoyed. I think one of the things to kind of be thankful for, man, the geeks took over the world, right? The combination of our fantasy role-playing stuff that is it is basically a cultural phenomenon anymore. You take a look at all the comic books that we got made fun of forever, and the Marvel Cinematic Universe is the most lucrative movie franchise of all time. And you take a look at, going from being lucky to find a set of polyhedral dice somewhere to you can buy them by the bag on the shelves at Barnes & Noble and Target these days. And all of the different things that we grew up with that we kind of had to hide from the cool kids in school so we didn't, get beat up on the bus, or, kind of had parents or worse, our friends' parents giving us the stink eye for daring to bring those games around the house or something. The joking that we had to put up with around some of the comic books or the fantasy novels that we were reading. And yet, guys, we won. Like, we sort of, we came out on top here, and I am thankful for the fact that my kids aren't having to deal with that shit, right? For being able to be fans of the things that they enjoy, and the generation following us as wargamers and as game nerds as we are, and all of those different kinds of fantasy properties and escapist hobbies that we enjoyed, and that's just another hobby anymore these days. That's not the weird hobby. That's in some cases it's the cool hobby, but it's not something that gets you stuffed in a locker anymore. It's not something that parents are going to look at you and go, start kind of tutting behind your back. How dare he do that, or whatever. The fact that, fantasy game artist is a viable career option for people anymore is kind of neat. This is cool. This is something that we should be thankful for and celebrate. And Jim, you mentioned go back and tell 12-year-old self that you would be able to play these kinds of games with the technology that you have. Go back and tell 12-year-old self that the Lord of the Rings movie trilogy, live action Lord of the Rings movie trilogy, is going to, sort of own the movie world for 5 years. What would 12-year-old you think back then about that? Or that there would be multiple big screen Dungeons and Dragons movies made, or, multiple Marvel Cinematic Universe movies made to the point where it becomes the most lucrative franchise of all time. It would be an astounding thing for us to have told ourselves back in 1980, 78, and 84 and whatever. I think it's kind of cool that that's where we are these days. It's definitely something that I would count myself thankful for. Enough monologuing from me. Bill, what do you got?
Man, I can't compete with that. That was deep, and you know what? I agree with you there. I was lucky enough to have my own tribe growing up, so I wasn't too put out. But yeah, I agree with you there. For me, I'm gonna. It's still wargaming related, but I'm grateful for all the content creators that are out there, whether it's podcasts or YouTube or other blogs, just getting information out about this hobby and what there is for us. If you're interested in unboxings, you can have those. If you're interested in playthroughs, you have those. And if you're interested in superficial or even good reviews, you have those out there. I'm also grateful for not being particularly interested in miniature wargaming, because I don't have 8 extra hours a week to watch Jim and his crew do all their stuff. Sometimes I wish I was. Every other week I'll pop on for a little bit and see what they're doing, but I'm grateful that it's out there for the people who really want it.
So one of the tricks with a show like Jim's, with not really a show, right? Because Jim, you're not really putting on a production. You're just sort of turn the camera on while you're playing. One of the tricks is watch it on 1.25 speed, and then it doesn't take 8 hours. It only takes about 6.
Well, I don't watch anything under 1.75, but yeah.
but you get the point. You can't do it in real time. You know, Jim, you guys don't talk that fast, but after the fact, you can speed them up a little bit, and you can still get almost all the game there without it taking the full length of time.
Yep, absolutely.
But Jim, one of these nights you guys need to snort a couple lines of blow before y'all start playing, so you can play it that much faster. And then when you watch it on high speed, it'll be really high speed. But Jim, last call for you. What's the one other thing you would like to throw out here for something that you would be thankful for?
Oh my goodness, I'm going to have to pan right down my list here because, well, I don't know why I thought we'd get to 17 items. Then again, maybe I thought we'd go 3.5 hours.
I am thankful that we didn't get through Jim's entire list.
You know, you're thankful. Thanks, Mike. I think it is the enduring community of gamers. And I think this goes to Bill's, because I agree that the content creators, they steady out my headspace from my daily work. Being able to check out somebody who is exploring a new game, or maybe teaching me a new approach to something, or just sharing an interest. And I guess this ties to yours too, Brant. When I first wanted to start painting Napoleonic soldiers, I said, okay, I will do Dutch Belgians. There's a long story behind that. I will do Dutch Belgians. Great. I have the figures. What do they look like? How do I paint them? What colors do I paint them? Well, where do you go? Well, I wound up begging the owner of the store to copy in black and white the color prints from the Osprey book. Let me tell you how useful that is. and so he gave me a couple of those. And then I said, well, how do you organize, what's a battalion? And how do I organize this base? How big is this base supposed to be? And how do I make it a battalion? And what does that mean? And how many guys should I be? All these questions that surrounded gaming at the time. And if you think you get off the hook by not doing miniatures gaming, I wanted to play Avalon Hill's Starship Troopers more than life itself. It was the first board game I ever owned, and was bought for me from a Gimbel's department store here in Milwaukee by my mother, because it was on sale for, I think, $4. And I bought it and I took it home, and I could not make heads or tails of it. I had no context. They were using words I did not understand. I didn't understand scale or just having a community that brings you along in the beginning, has how-to videos, has, posts and blogs and things you can check out, and then sustains you really through the whole life of it. It's like, here's how we played this game. Here's, maybe you're doing this wrong. Take a look at this. That didn't exist, that whole ecosystem, when we were younger. And having it now is sustaining, and I am certainly thankful for it.
Yeah, absolutely. We were only teasing you about the 17-item list, but you should know that at this point, there's no way we're getting through all of those.
No, that's all good. That's all good. I'm focused.
The fact that you showed up prepared for something is, it's not that it's astounding. It's just a little weird, because nobody ever prepares for these things.
Jim always has a list.
It's a list.
Brian prepares for these things, but he's about the only one, and it's partly because we were using some of his topic suggestions. So, all right, Mike, take us home. Wrap up not just this episode, but our season.
Well, so first, I am thankful Jim actually prepared a list, and I think that's something we ought to consider more in the future when we do these podcasts. Prepare, and then I'm going to kind of turn around what Bill had said. As a content creator, I'm thankful for people like Bill who actually want to watch these things and provide feedback, and even if it's just a thumbs up or something, we know you're out there. It's this encouragement to keep doing these things. So I am thankful for that. The final thing I'm going to say, though, I am thankful that I have the time, not enough, but I'm thankful I have time to dedicate to this hobby. So there is that.
It does help when you've already, punched out of the workforce.
It helps a lot, but I tell you, people that have not retired, when you retire, you will not have enough time. You'll have more, but you'll never have enough.
100% agree. It's ridiculous.
Should I ever get there, I will, then conduct a field test as to the accuracy of your guys' statements.
It's still highly recommended.
Oh, yes. It's a great test to conduct, Brant. You'll love it, but you're not going to have enough time.
Fair enough. That, and I may not have enough playing partners on the Caribbean island that I hope to retire to at some point. So there's a little bit of that too. All right. Look, we're pulling the plug on season 13, not because we don't love you guys out there in the audience and, that we don't want to keep you entertained each week, but because we do have other things coming up over the holidays that we've got some family obligations and social obligations and the occasional work obligation that we've got to deal with. And so we're going to put the podcast on pause until after the ACDC is when we will be starting up again. So late January is when we will start up again. We'll run through the spring like we normally do and then take a break for the summer, mostly for convention season, but not exclusively. The good thing is, Mike, you'll get a kick out of this. We've had so many different suggestions pop up throughout this season of the podcast that we actually already have most of next season's topics worked out. So
that's a first. I am thankful for that.
It absolutely is a first, and it wasn't really intentional. There's a couple of things that sort of script themselves in just because of the time of year that we are doing things, where we're going to do another podcast episode where we piece together a couple of interviews from Gamma Expo. But we've had enough other topics come up throughout the course of this season that we've got most of next season's agenda already laid out. It's just a matter of which week we're going to do all the different things. So we've got that to look forward to. In the meantime, we will have our usual weirdness over the holidays. We will do our year in wargaming review survey for our audience. Have that run throughout December for people to get a chance to respond. We did make some adjustments to last year's survey based on the feedback we got from the participants. So you'll see some questions that are different on that survey that were suggested by the audience that we've swapped in and out. And so we're gonna do that, collect that during December, and then give you the results in January around those things. And ACDC, and then galloping off to the next thing that comes up beyond that. Jim, thank you very much for joining us. I appreciate it. I will make sure that things get sent to the appropriate email address in the future. I
no worries at all.
I beg you for forgiveness. So,
no worries whatsoever.
Bill, thank you for making it to now your second podcast here with you. You realize now you're going to be in the rotation for regular.
Well, that just means I haven't screwed up that bad yet. Yes.
Oh, don't think that having a screw up is going to get you out of being here. So, and Mike, thank you very much for being here for most of this season and being an affable and enjoyable co-host. And I appreciate all the time that you put into being a part of these podcasts. So thanks.
Yep, I enjoy it. It's a great time.
And the last thing we will be thankful for is our audience, guys. I joke that without you, we'd probably still do the podcast anyway, because this is a chance for us to sort of hang out and chat with our friends, and we just hit record while we're doing it. But the reality is, as Mike said, the feedback that we get from you guys is appreciated and something we enjoy hearing and reading. And so, take a moment and share your love of the podcast with other folks. Let's find a couple of new listeners for next year. In the meantime, we will catch you in January on next season of Mention and Dispatches.
Happy holidays.